Gobble gobble, everyone. Welcome to the Logic Apps webcast for November.
Happy almost Thanksgiving.
Almost Thanksgiving for those.
What Thanksgiving is.
Yeah, the America, we're about to have our Thanksgiving, but everyone's grateful today for Azure Logic Apps and for Microsoft Azure as a whole, so we can all celebrate. So thank you for joining. We do this monthly webcast. I'm Jeff Holland, and I'm joined today by
Kevin Lamb.
John Fancy.
Yeah. So we're all program managers in the Microsoft integration team, focusing on Logic Apps and BizTalk Server. We're here to answer your questions, show you some stuff we've been working on, tell you what's coming up. So if you'll notice, if you're watching this live, that there's a chat window right next to this video. Feel free to ping in any questions you have, and we'll answer them as we go or at the end. Or if you're watching the recording or prefer to do it the other way, you can always tweet us at LogicAppsIO, and we will answer that as we go. So we've had a lot of great stuff happen. We did our last webcast a little over 3 weeks ago, and it was huge. Like it went like 45 minutes long, but we're just going over this deck, and we again have a ton of stuff that's been shipped and it's coming. So we're excited to share with you some of the stuff we're working on and some of the stuff that we have shipped. So with that, why don't we jump right into it, Kevin? I'll just let you take over with some of the new stuff.
Excellent. Well, with the theme of Thanksgiving, we are stuffed with new features.
That was good. We didn't even prepare that
one. Okay, so what's new? Let's go down the list.
These are the jokes, folks.
It's almost holiday time. Service bus. So we added a trigger and an action so that you can do, when you do a get, you can actually get a batch of messages all at once instead of doing individual gets on those messages. So now that you can get a collection of messages and pass them as a collection to your other objects. IP whitelisting. So we said we'd do this last week and we got it done as last webcast. So now you're able to, in the portal, go ahead and configure your IP addresses so that only the configured set of IP addresses can either look at call your trigger or constrain it so they can call inputs and outputs.
Great.
Regenerate access keys. So now this is, we had this done in the back end. Now it's available in the portal so that you can actually go ahead and regenerate your access keys either for rolling those access keys or in case something gets compromised, you can go ahead and roll that. And what that means is that you'll get a new SAS rule for all of your connection strings.
So for any of you who have questions on kind of like, how does this IP access key, what's the relationship with all this? I'm actually halfway through a document right now that I'll be publishing by the end of the week that breaks down how do I secure my Logic app, both like access control, trigger control, some of the stuff we've done. So if you want a little bit deeper insight into the workings of some of these new features we've done around securing your Logic apps, be sure to follow us on Twitter, and I'll tweet out as soon as that document goes live later this week for a little bit more of the nitty-gritty details.
If we're lucky, we might get a demo today.
Yeah, we'll see it for sure.
Static IPs. So now Logic Apps has configured IP addresses so that you can, if you want to configure your own network systems to determine, lock down the IP addresses that's accessing your systems. We now have static IPs for Logic Apps. So we've had it for connectors for quite some time, and now it's, so for all those HTTP requests that come from Logic Apps, you now know what the static IPs are. Metadata lookup. John.
Yeah, what should I say about metadata lookup? So I've talked about this in the past. This was released this week. Couple of things here. So we have the ability to now edit in JSON the partners and agreements in the integration account, and this lets you work with the metadata that you can associate to basically configuration on these artifacts. And I'll be showing that in a little bit. And then associated with that, it's no good having configuration if you've got no way of looking it up. So we've got a new action which lets you do a lookup on an integration account artifact and retrieve that configuration and do whatever you like with it. I'm going to show that as well.
So that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
We get to now have extensibility for our integration account.
Yeah.
And more John demos, which is a good thing too. If you've been watching the Azure Connect thing, John's had some great appearances, so be sure to look that up as well.
I'd say there's no pressure, but there's actually quite a bit of pressure that's strong enough.
Yeah.
And you guys will find out. So.
Okay. And B2B tracking in OMS. So now, we talked about being able to do message tracking in operation management services, and now that's been released. So there's a package that you can select to see the B2B extended messages. You want to add, John?
Yeah, and again, I'm going to show this in a little bit. So 2 things with this. It's a simple, just click and configure to push all your B2B events to OMS now. And associated with that, we have a tracking API, which sits on top of this that lets you write your own custom tracking events as well. I'm going to show that too.
Sweet. Insert your own tracking.
Yeah.
Nice. That's super sexy. Singleton instances. I'm super excited about this one. Right now, it's in code view only. We'll be I didn't add this to our coming next, but yes, we'll be adding this to the designer as well.
Yep.
So now you can have a singleton logic app. So what that means is that if you set this on your trigger for a polling trigger, only one trigger will poll at a time, only one instance will run at a time, so that you can have, for example, in-order messaging, or if you want to be able to control how you're handling stuff downstream if you're getting overwhelmed by all the requests that are coming in. A lot of great scenarios are going to come out of this.
Yep.
And this also works for a recurrence trigger. So if you have a recurrence that's pretty short, let's say running every 1 or 2 minutes, but your logic app takes a much longer time, it will actually make sure that you don't have 2 recurrences firing at the same time.
Yep.
Show raw inputs and outputs in the run history view. So now, if previously when you went to your run history view and you looked at that beautiful monitoring view of your designer and all the steps that happened, if you wanted to get that kind of raw view of the JSON of the body, even though we tokenized and put some stuff into the boxes themselves, you had to go into the old view and look at the bodies. So now we have the option so you can actually look at that raw JSON object right in that monitoring view, so you don't have to jump out of it. Access request query parameters as tokens. So in your request trigger, you have, it's really an HTTP request to your logic app. And so now we've tokenized those query parameters. So now you can access the query parameters that you passed in on the request URL. Run in Designer. Oh, this is really cool. This is almost like debug, not really. But from the designer, you can actually click Run Now from the designer. The designer will actually change its view and wait for the next input to come in, and then you'll see it actually run live in that designer. We'll get to
we will see that.
Right?
We will see that one. It's such a fun one to demo.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
SAS connectors.
big list.
So we've been busy with SAS, with the SAS connectors. So let's start going down this list. DocumentDB.
Yay!
It's been a long time ask for everybody. We finally released our Azure DocumentDB connector, and hopefully you guys will have as much fun with it. We have Azure Storage Queues.
Yay!
That one kind of slipped in under the radar.
Yeah.
It's also been a long time ask, and we've had stuff in our kind of open code view doc store, but now it's actually an official connector, so you can actually use Azure Storage Queues. File system.
Oh, this is a big one.
Yeah.
This is another one that slipped like.
Yeah. For those guys who are in the BizTalk world, the file adapter, everybody use that thing, even from tests to demos to real, using in real production system, being able to access your files on-prem on your file system. And now we have a connector for that.
Yep.
We do, yeah, and it was available just this week. It's rolled out, I think, to all data centers now. So, and I'll be showing this in a bit as well, my Uber demo where I'm going to be showing everything. Yeah.
Power BI. So now you can push data directly to Power BI from your Logic app. You don't have to do all this intermediary stuff to push it to a queue or a database or something else to go lens that data. So you can
so this initial Power BI connector that is rolling out, it should be global now or soon.
Yeah.
It has triggering on Power BI alerts. So if you use like a Power BI application, you can set up data alerts. And the other one is you can set alerts. The pushing straight to a data set, it's coming shortly in like another 2 weeks. I've been on a thread with that. But the connector's there. It only has one trigger, one action, and then they're going to be adding a new action to push data directly to a data set.
Cognitive services, so text. So that's out now. So now you can do
text and face.
Face is a separate one.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
You ruined
spoilers.
That.
Dang it! It's movie season, and I'm just spoiling things all over the place.
So now you can do your sentiment analysis right out of the box we support that. And it's some really cool scenarios you can utilize with Cognitive Services text. I should have added that text analytics. But face API. So now you can do picture recognition and face recognition utilizing our Cognitive Services to go and pass those things in. So now you can do some pretty neat stuff passing in pictures to logic apps.
Yeah. Face detection, and it's cool.
Even I think location detection.
Yeah, it's
pretty cool. Hip chat. I'm going to start ripping through this list because this is going to take a while. Hip chat, WordPress, Campfire, Vimeo. Wait, I'm not done. Another column.
Wait, there's more.
There's more. Asana, Bitly, Jira. This one was just asked me when I was in Toronto at the
Jira or Pinterest?
Jira. And so Jira was asked, it's like, hey, do you have a Jira thing coming? It's like, yeah, wait, pretty soon it comes out. Well, Pinterest, Google Tasks, Google Calendar, Discus, Instapaper, Redmine, and Easy Redmine. So this is all in the last month. These things are out. So that's yeah, we've been busy.
Yep. And I'll just do another plug here. I know we've mentioned it before, but if you are interested in potentially helping us write connectors, or there's a connector you want us to work on, Kevin's going to show us a user voice link. But specifically, if you know of someone or of a service or an API that you'd be willing to help add to that list of things that have come, feel free to reach out to us, either our email, logicappsemail@microsoft.com, or on Twitter, and we'll connect you with the right folks and make sure that we make that an easy experience for you.
Okay.
Should we show some demos?
Let's show some demos.
Okay, so we've got a bunch of demos quickly. The question I'll answer actually really quick before we go on is, so I'll leave that one for later. What's the typical scenario for Power BI connector? Today, like as of right now, it's in an app. You can say like, I want an alert. If I'm like monitoring the health of a service, you can set an alert in Power BI like, hey, if this thing drops below 80%, then your Power BI database will actually fire an alert. And the scenario today is you could have a logic app respond to that alert and say, hey, something happened, send emails, go add incidents in CRM, whatever. And then shortly in the coming week or two, you could be able to say, hey, I actually want to be able to plot what's happening in my workflow real time on a dashboard. And you could push data real time into a Power BI dashboard for kind of showing things. Like the demo I love doing is getting in tweets, running it through Cognitive Services, and then plotting what people are saying about a topic and their sentiment about it in real time. Okay, with that, and we'll answer some of the other questions as we go on, but I do want to wow some people with demos. Let me go ahead and share my screen and watch it go into cool Inception mode. And let's come over here to some of the improvements we've made in the portal. So we have here a logic app. This is actually my logic app I use to monitor our MSDN forum. So it gives me a nice push notification whenever someone posts on our forum, so I know to go look at it and help. So some of the new things we've added here are these pieces on access control configuration and access keys. So if this was a request trigger, if this was responding off of an HTTP request, I could come in here and restrict it to only IP addresses that I want to be able to fire it. So request triggers already have a shared access signature. It already has a form of authentication there. Again, I'm writing a doc that goes into details, but maybe I have API management in my API management instance. It's not this IP address, obviously, but it's at 10.0.0.1. I can add that to my list, and when I save this, only requests that come from that IP address now can fire my logic app.
You can also constrain a logic app so that it can only be called by another logic app.
Correct. So there's another tweak going on to this, which doesn't show here, but if you actually make this an empty set, not null, but empty, so there'll be a drop down. I think it's shipping this week. You can say, hey, I only want this logic app to be triggered from another logic app, from a parent logic app, nothing external to the service. So that's an option as well. We're adding a drop down here to make that more obvious. And you can also specify IP ranges for contents. So if I open a run, and I'll show a few things by opening a run. So if I look at the last forum post we had at 8:12 today, you can see here I can open it and view the contents of the message. I can see, what was the forum post that was posted, what was the push notification that went to my phone. You can restrict access to the contents of a message by IP address. So that's another ability of security you have. Kind of a little bit of I don't want to call it a hack, but one thing that you can do for now as we continue to build out this story is you could potentially set this IP address to like 192.168.1.1 and save it. And now no one can view the contents of a message. And then if I'm an administrator of the Logic app, maybe I want like just-in-time access, I could lift that restriction and start viewing contents if I need to debug sooner. So you can now restrict access to contents by IP as well. Quickly here, we added this cancel run button. So if you have a running workflow, you can cancel it without having to do that through the API. And we've seen the resubmit before, but we added this nice confirmation dialog so you don't accidentally resubmit something you didn't want to resubmit. The last thing I'll show quickly is the run in the designer button. So you'll see it's grayed out right now because I haven't saved this workflow, but I'm able to run a Logic app without having to have closed the designer out. It's actually pretty cool because I can do things real time. So I'm going to look at Twitter. I'm going to look at hashtag Logic apps, and whenever someone tweets that, I, just for the sake of making this simple, I'm just going to compose a new object. So let's just say tweet, and let's drop in whatever they tweeted. So let's search here for tweet. All right, so I'm just going to compose this object. So once I save this, before I would have had to close the designer, gone out, started messing with things. I don't have to do that anymore. I can just click this run button, which it looks like I hit some timeout or something because it's not showing it. So let me close and reopen this to show you. Saving Logic app failed. I did something wrong. This is what I get for leaving my windows open for so long. Let's create this Logic app again really quickly. I'm also in our dog food environment, so hopefully this works good. Hashtag Logic app. Let's just do compose, and I'll just do hello. Go ahead and save this. Okay, that one worked. So now I'll go ahead and click run. And what this is going to do is it says, hey, if you want to see this work now, go ahead and create a new tweet. It's possible one of you watching this will tweet faster than I can. But I'll go ahead and tweet from my phone with hashtag Logic app. And this is constantly polling and looking for new tweets. So let's just go ahead and say lots of cool things in hashtag Logic app. And when I tweet that, it's going to go ahead and pick up that tweet and fire off the Logic app, and we're going to be able to watch it run in real time. We didn't have to close the designer. We didn't have to open up run history. So this just allows me a really easy way as I'm building a designer to run it and go as it goes. You can see here as these notification windows pop up all the times it's checking Twitter. Hopefully I tweeted the right thing as well. And it should show up. Did I tweet the right hashtag? Let's see what I'm tweeting. Hashtag Logic app. I didn't need to be plural, did it? Anyway, maybe we won't wait for this to run, but it does, I promise. I did it in the Connect session. I did this exact demo with an email. There it goes. Just took a little bit of time for Twitter to give me back the thing. So here's my tweet. Lots of cool things in hashtag Logic app tweeted by me. And I did my compose card. Just took a little bit for it to pick it up from Twitter. The other thing I'll show you, we mentioned it, is I can also see the raw outputs and see the raw inputs if I want to open up this window and view the raw HTTP request and response that was generated. Okay, that's it for me. John,
yeah,
you want to show some of the other amazing, oh, whoa. Okay, great, there we go. John, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
I think I just grabbed it.
We are looking at Kevin's.
There we go.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, there we go.
I don't know. That's a great question. Oh, I'm getting some complaints that it is a little bit blurry. Anyway, that's fine. It's looking clean on mine now. Okay.
Nice transitional.
Yeah, you're live here.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Right. So I thought it'd be fun to try to put together, a bunch of the things that we just talked about in terms of new features in the last month. So what I've got here is a Logic app that's kind of longer than what we normally demo. And what this is doing is a bunch of things using the new features. So it's using the SAP connector, which is available now in private preview. Did we mention that? So we actually pushed it out on our blog. So if you're interested in trying out the SAP connector, just click on the link and you just.
It's coming up ones.
It's coming up ones, but yeah, we're very interested in people trying it out and giving us feedback before we release it more broadly. But for everybody here, please go ahead and if you're interested in trying it out, sign up for access, and we'll sort you out. So what I've got here, though, is a logic app. And first thing it does, I'm going to kind of break it up into pieces, but the first thing it really does is it enumerates a file folder on my machine on premises, and it picks up all of the files. Now, the files that are actually in that file folder are iDocs. So these are SAP orders that I'm going to pick up and then push to SAP. And that's what this for each does. So the for each actually does a get file content. So once I've enumerated the list of files in the folder, I get each file individually. And because each file's got an iDoc in it, I can then pass them to SAP, which is this step here. And then I'm actually writing a logout. When I have processed that file from SAP, I'm actually going to write to a log file, again, in a separate folder on my machine here, and just write out the file that was processed. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do a lookup from the integration account. So this is what we were talking about. So here I'm actually doing an agreement lookup. So I'm going to look up by that artifact type, because I'm actually going to send this out to a partner as well. The way this works is I'm just picking up the file name and using the file name minus the extension to resolve to an agreement. And the reason I'm doing that is because the agreement's got some metadata on it, which has got the URL that I'm actually going to send it to. And that's what's happening in the next step here. So I'll just open this up. Here I'm actually sending the results of the processing, which is basically just the log of the files. I'm sending that out over AS2 to a trading partner dynamically. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to clean up. So I'm going to create a file in my processed folder and then delete it from my incoming folder. So a lot going on there. So let's
wait a minute, you're doing this all on your laptop in the cloud?
All on my laptop to the cloud, yeah. So here's kind of what this looks like from the file system point of view. Here's my log folder, and I'll just open this up. So this is where I'm going to be logging stuff. And just by the way, I'm actually writing this all out to OMS as well, because it's the AS2 componentry configured through the integration account to log to OMS, and I've actually got some custom tracking, which I'll go through in a second. So you can see I've just got kind of 4 log entries there, and then kind of stepping up, just a little slow on my machine. I've got an iDoc here, which is Fabric app. You see the name of it's important because I'm using that name to do the metadata lookup, which is the name of the partner and agreement in my integration account. So if I drop this into my orders in folder, hopefully it'll disappear. I'm going to just open this up. Now, we don't have a file trigger yet. We're working on that next. So what I'm just going to do is fire this manually, just to make this quick. But of course, it can just run on a schedule, which is actually what it does here. It runs every hour. So I can just run this. I could have done run now. Yeah, I'll just run this. And it takes a little while. Again, it's running in our internal environment. It's also running on my laptop with a bunch of other things going on. It's also doing a whole bunch of stuff. So let's just go through this again. So it's going to fire. It's then going to do a get file content. So this stuff here is actually using my custom tracking API. Now, this warrants a little bit of explanation. I've actually got an Azure function here, which is picking up the run ID of my logic app and emitting custom tracking events to OMS as well. And the custom tracking event it's picking up is actually an event, because this is a relatively large JSON-based structure for the schema of the tracking events. It picks it up from Dropbox. And if you looked at the file in Dropbox, it kind of looks a bit like this. I'll just open this thing up super quickly so you can have a look. You can see here's the kind of the event record I'm writing out. And the important stuff is this stuff at the bottom. I'm actually writing out a couple of errors that I'm going to spit out to OMS as part of my tracking. You can see, just got a little welcome message here. It's actually going to write that out to OMS. So I've got a kind of tracking API here, and of course my AS2 tracking is happening as well. And then down the bottom, I've got another tracking API. So let's see how this thing's getting on, whether it's completed yet. And it says succeeded at 11:24, which is awesome. So if I start by looking at the file folder and see kind of what happened there, you can see the orders in file's gone.
Yay!
Oh, awesome. So let's and if I go to the orders processed, really is the slowest file system in the world. Logic Apps is way faster. Hopefully it's going to fit that. Right, there you go. Fabric app XML. So it's moved that file from inbound to processed. And then if I look at the log, hopefully it'll append it to the log file as well to tell me what's going on. And here we go. Log.txt. It's now got 5 entries in it.
So this is a real nice way to have really large files you can just append to. You don't have to suck that into memory.
Absolutely.
Logic Apps can go through that.
So for those of you who have been using Logic Apps a while and putting files through, I think one of the requests we're getting is larger and larger files. So this is kind of interesting because the append file action here doesn't have a limit in terms of the size of the file. You can constantly just append to the end of it. So if you're got a scenario like this where you're just writing out data on the end of a file, then you're not subjected to the sort of overall processing limit. You can just keep appending to the file, and it's like several gigabytes. That just works fine. Yeah. So great scenario for being able to build up a file, and then such as a log file that I'm doing here. You can see everything else kind of works, sending to SAP and all the rest of it. Right. So the other thing I wanted to just quickly show before we move on is this. So this is Microsoft Operations Management Suite, and here we have a Logic Apps B2B solutions. You can just go to the gallery. You can try this out yourself today. Just create a trial instance of OMS, and then wire that up to your integration account. I'll show that if we get a second. But once you've done that, as soon as you start using those B2B components like the AS2 encode, decode, and the other EDI pieces, you'll start pushing data from Logic Apps. So what we have right now is the AS2 and X12. Because I was using AS2 and kind of sending an HTTP response out through AS2. Yeah, it is. Hopefully, we should see my data show up here. It does take a few minutes to index. Yes. Let's just refresh this thing. I can see what I did just before we went on air. So I'll open that one up if it doesn't appear, which is this one here, which is AS2 outbound. I've opened this up. This takes me to log search, and then I can see all the raw log data that I had. So I kind of get the sort of the top level errors and what's in flight, what's being processed, because I may have to receive an acknowledgement before I can understand the status of that interchange with the trading partner. And if I don't receive that, then obviously that's an error. And if I do receive it, it's a negative acknowledgement, then I want to flag that as an error as well. So kind of from the top level tile, being able to understand the status of the B2B processes running via OMS, and then kind of drill right down to this log view. And here you can construct your own queries, you can save them, and really customize the whole thing as well. So you get a lot of power and flexibility.
Custom tracking appears here too.
Yeah, and my custom tracking events also appear in here as well. So yeah, that's what those Azure functions are doing that I wrote. I just wrote a simple tracking API function. I can just call it from strategic points of my Logic app to add my own tracking information as well. And of course, I'm still a bit like BAM, yeah. And of course, I can kind of pass the correlation token in this case as well, which is actually the run ID. I can pass that around between Logic Apps and get full kind of end-to-end, and even from outside of Logic Apps. But this tracking API, I should make it really clear, is just a REST API endpoint, HTTP-based endpoint. So if you've got a system that's calling into Logic Apps, that can consume this API as well and emit tracking events that show up in OMS. And when Logic Apps call that to something else, that can be decorated with tracking data as well, and you get sort of a full end-to-end all through OMS. And just to kind of prove that this thing actually worked, let's go to the integration account. So, just a second.
Because we're all suspicious still.
Yeah,
John, that this was just a bunch of smoke and mirrors.
Right. So this is my integration account, and here I've got 3 agreements, and the one that I chose because it was the name of the file, remember, was Fabricant. See, I now have this new option, edit as JSON. So when I do that, it actually opens up the whole thing, and I can actually get a JSON view. And down the bottom here, I have metadata, and you see I've actually added these routing addresses, and I've got an HTTP routing address, and here I'm using request bit. So what this is doing is it's just sending out the HTTP request. So it's doing an AS2 encode, which is writing to OMS, so I know what's going on, and then I do an HTTP out using this address that I pick up dynamically from the metadata lookup of my Logic app. If I go to request bin and go to that URL, with any luck, it says, yeah, a few minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, actually received that AS2 encoded message from Logic app as well. Okay.
Away from Brazil South to your machine.
I was going to say, this is like the kind of demo where if my wife ever asked me, like, what do I do when I did this demo, she'd be like, wait, the cloud is running on your computer and pulling files around? It's just like...
So the other thing I just want to really quickly show you, this is one of the power we have with OMS. And you're probably not going to be able to see this, but we actually have the OMS portal on your phone as well. So I can just click through this thing, and let's see if it loads up.
Let's see if I can get it to show. Yeah. The resolution's already poor. Look at that.
Look at that. There you go.
Wow.
So you get the same tile-based view on your phone as you get in the portal. So you can take this around with you and see what's going on and kind of
Wait,
drill
so
into it.
you mean operators can now like go to lunch?
Let's not get that of ourselves, Kevin.
That's
Let's
right.
not get that of
They're not
ourselves.
just chained to their desks anymore. Okay.
Great. Wow. So much to show. So much to share. All right. Kevin,
Yes.
you stopped presenting your screen.
I did.
Yeah, it says it's not present. Oh, I think it's because we pulled it away from you. I'll bet you when one of us presents it, pulls the other one.
All right.
Anyway, so we can switch to upcoming. But yeah, it's some very cool stuff. Again, hopefully you notice that the features that we're working on, the features we're adding, including the connectors we're adding, is all, yep, we see it now, is all driven very heavily by user feedback, by things like this webcast, by questions in the chat window, by tweets, by user voice. So keep engaging with us on those as well. And you'll see actually a bunch of these in progress things. A lot of these you guys have been voting for and hoping for. So Kevin, without me spoiling any more.
Yeah, in progress. This is another long list. Let's see what's at the top of the list. I forgot. Improved connector search.
This is pretty cool.
So this is we've had some challenges where people come into the portal and right at the get-go and when they're adding a trigger, they say, hey, I'm looking for the SQL connector. Oh, I don't see it in this list, and then they go away or they get really upset. And sometimes people don't realize we constrain the results of that list to only triggers. So now we're greatly improving that search experience. So not only do you get this flat list of operations, but you'll also get a set of connectors at the top of that view. So you can have a much better browsing experience for being able to find your connectors. And if we realize that we have the connector but it doesn't have a trigger, we'll give you a nice message to lead you in the right direction. But we're really excited about this improved search to make you guys more successful at creating logic apps. Message batching. So we said we work on this before. We're continuing to work on it, and we're excited to have batching come out. Yep, that's still in progress. Session state.
Yes, I would have renamed it to variables.
Oh, variables.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yes, variables.
It's all.
Variables is for a lot of logic apps that they want to be able to track something in the instance and want to be able to have, like, for example, in a do until loop or for each loop, be able to track some value. We're going to have variables. I should have changed that to variables instead of session state. So now you can do some more interesting things, counters and temporary state in your instance. It's gonna be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Generate schema from sample. This is going to be fun. So in the request trigger, we give you the ability to give us a schema for your request, and then later on in your logic app, we can then access the tokens of that message based on that schema. But today, if you're not a JSON schema expert, you can't type that from scratch. You have to go to some site to do JSONschema.net or whatever to go convert it, and then come back and copy and paste it in there. So now what we've done is what we're doing is we'll give you the opportunity to give us a sample piece of JSON, and then we'll generate that schema for you. So then you can use that right there and not have to leave the logic app designer to specify your schema. JSON parse. So being able to take an incoming JSON request and then spit out a bunch of tokens based on a schema you provide. So you can now, for any output from a connector, you can then pass into a JSON parse with the schema, and then we will tokenize that body. So if a particular connector doesn't give you the ability to do that, we can provide that for you with this JSON parse action. Connection from Azure subscription. Don't you hate it when you're creating a connection and you want to connect to one of your Azure resources, and you say, oh, I need that connection string, so I have to leave my designer, go find that entity, copy paste that connection string, come back, go back to the state where I was in, and paste it back in. No longer. Right from that connection box, you will be able to go interrogate your resource and then pull that connection string into your connection experience. So yes, keeping the designer is a good thing. Select objects in the designer. So today, when you have a hierarchy of JSON objects, we give you a nice way to access all the leaf properties of that object, so we tokenize everything. but sometimes you want to access the whole object itself or one of the child objects. So now we're working on letting you actually do that, actually grab one of those objects and use that as input to another action.
Yeah, so this came up in one of Kevin and John and I's conferences we were doing recently, where someone said, hey, I'm triggering off of a new instance in CRM. Is there an easy way I can just pass the entire object without only just saying, first name, last name, address? So now the designer will let you grab the entire object instead of just those individual properties, like Kevin said.
Wait, there's more.
Another, oh, I thought, yeah, I thought there was going to see another column.
Partner resolution, John.
Yeah, so this is related to kind of resolving agreements with the integration account. So it's just provided a little bit more flexibility. And to Jeff's point around kind of taking feedback, is one of the great pieces of feedback we've had during the preview of this, is that sometimes you want to know what the partner and agreement resolution is going to be before you actually try to decode the message. And you may need to do that because maybe you know that partner doesn't adhere strictly to the specification or whatever, or the schema needs some updates to the message coming in, needs some updates to it before you actually pass it to the decode stage. So we now have the ability to figure that out and do that step and then pass it to decode once you've done any work with it that you need to do. So just give a little bit more fine-grained control. And that's going out really soon. That's literally is done. We're just going through the kind of deployment process.
Awesome. But Jeff was right. There's more.
There is another column. Wow.
Expression evaluation and run history. So have you ever had the scenario where you've looked in that run history and you see a condition statement and you had a complex expression in there and just like, well, how did that evaluate? I don't understand why it went down this path versus not that path. So now we'll actually break down and show you the evaluation of each of those workflow definition language functions in that run history, so you can see how it evaluated and how it resulted. So
I can hear the applause.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
The virtual applause. Switch. Ooh, how many times have you wanted to be able to do, instead of a constrained set of nested if else's, if you just wanted to look at a particular value and switch on that particular value for an entity, we're going to give you a first-class experience in the designer to actually build out a switch statement in your logic app. Header control. So, in the HTTP action, we have a means by which you can pass the header name value pairs along, but we've just given you kind of like a raw text box and you put a JSON object in there, and that's not a real great experience. So now we're adding the capability to give you a name value control, so you can actually put those in there directly instead of having to write raw JSON. And then this control will be used in other places as well in the designer. Only allow calls from other logic apps. So Jeff showed early in the demo that you can constrain with the IP constraint capability, how you can constrain it so only certain IP addresses can trigger your logic app. Today you can do this, but you have to go into kind of code view to make it happen. We'll add to the portal experience a means by which you can select to say, hey, only call from a logic app, so it's a child logic app that's safe. You can only call from other parent logic apps. And a whole bunch of connectors.
Wow, more connectors.
We have more connectors coming down the line. An ARM connector. John talked about an SAP connector, DocuSign, MSN Weather, Medium. I'm sure there's a whole bunch more in the hopper, but these are the ones kind of at the top of the stack that will be coming out. So we're busy.
Yes, tons. So we'll take this chance now to actually answer a few questions because they've been popping in and there's some good ones, and then we can finish up. So keep asking your questions, and then we've got a nice little, I don't know what you call those slides, bumper slides or something, but on the other side. Okay, so let's see. There were a few questions on Oracle, on an ETA on an Oracle DB connector. So John, I noticed we have a survey going out now on interest for Oracle EBS. If you go to aka.ms/Oracle EBS, you can vote if you're interested in that. Do you have any updates on Oracle DB?
I don't. It's something that I think is that the connectors team is working hard to enable, but we don't have any dates to share right now on that.
Okay.
Right.
And then, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I think that the one thing I'd say with all of these connectors is if you think there are connectors missing, or you think there's ones that we're not mentioning, then tell us, because that really helps us prioritize. It really helps us understand, where we can, unblock people, the large majority of people, as soon as possible. So just tell us if you think there's ones missing. Just let us know.
Or if it's really important, we'll put a fire to the right people who are building those things to get them that faster.
So I sent a doc on this, but there was a question on if we have any demos or walkthroughs on using the BizTalk Transform service in Logic Apps. So I pasted the link to the article. I didn't know if you knew if there's any recordings that we've done that have that kind of going through, or if it's something that we need to generate.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So start with the doc, and then we'll add it to our list of cool walkthroughs that we want to post. Or if someone even watching this wants to create that cool walkthrough, we will promote it from our channels and probably send you a sticker or something. Okay, any improvements coming to maps? And
what sort of improvements?
The follow-up question was using map without configuring any Azure functions.
Ah, well, yes, indeed. That's something that I think. That's something that I think we're targeting next week for that to be deployed. The way this kind of works is it kind of gets rolled out over a number of days. So what that means is that today, if you use the transform action, you know that you have to configure and create a function container, and then put a function in it, which is consumed by that action. All that is going away. Should be next week, there or thereabouts. So then all you'll have to do is just put a map and integration account, create the action, reference, pick the map you want to run, you're done. So all of that stuff around the functions, everything kind of goes away. Very
cool. And then the other one, John, a lot of these are for you, man. You're the guy. Is there a way, or will there be a way to upload integration account artifacts through an API?
There already is. So we have a REST API and a PowerShell API as well. So you can already do that. Yeah.
And how about the ability to filter Logic App run history by run status and date range? So this is another one that actually is in the coming soon list that we didn't get to, but yeah, we want to add better ways for you to be able to filter your runs and say, hey, I'm only interested in runs within this date range that had this status. So that's something that we are going to start work on shortly, that we should see light up in the next few weeks. So keep tuning into these webcasts and we'll give updates on that, but it's a very good question. And then finally, the last question before we move back to the closing slide. It looks like there's two more. One of them's hard. I haven't seen questions like this one for a while, but this one's good. They're both good. Twitter connector, can you send a post when you have a new follower? It's a great question. The answer is no. And the answer is no only because the Twitter terms of service for their API tell us that they do not want us to use it to automate those types of scenarios. So we currently do not have a on a new follower trigger. We do not want to be blocked by Twitter and say Twitter is no longer to integrate with Logic Apps. So there's a few restrictions on that API, and one of them is that we do not allow you to auto respond to followers. And then the last question is, are there any dates for when Enterprise Integration Pack is going GA? Remember the GA questions you used to get all the time for Logic Apps? Yeah. Now it's your turn, John.
There we go. Yeah. Soon.
The answer stays the same.
Yeah, we're working hard. Honestly, when it's ready, I think is the best answer. I think we've had a bunch of feedback, great usage growth over the last few months since we went into preview with this, and when it's ready, which we hope will be soon, it will GA.
Great, perfect. All right, so that is all the stuff to share now. Let's go ahead and Kevin, you want to wrap it up with your?
I added that XML transform.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you did.
Dynamic.
Oh, dynamically, yeah, you fixed your slides. It was there the whole time.
Yeah. Okay, as always, you're welcome, and we appreciate you reaching out to us. We try to reach out to you in certain ways as well. We have our Logic Apps blog and our update blog.
I think that update link, it's actually aka.ms/logicappsupdate. Yeah, I think that blog's one will go to a 404, but that's okay. So follow the same pattern as the one above it. Look at this, another dynamic fix. Yeah, so the Logic Apps update, anytime we do a release, we do an update post saying like, here's what's changed, here's the bugs we fixed. So you can subscribe to that. You could even, if you wanted to, create a Logic app. So whenever there's a post on Logic App Update, it sends you a text message or a notification. There you go.
That's awesome.
Changing lives, one Logic app at a time.
And always, please vote for features. You know, if there's a feature there that you really care about, up the vote count or add it to that list, and then we review that list and it affects our stack rank. Thanks. The BizTalk blog, Azure podcast. This is our podcast. Podcast.
Yeah, because you appeared on that one podcast and you just want to plug yourself again.
No, so it should say webcast.
Look at all these dynamic edits. Someone's ready for a Thanksgiving break. Yes, so yeah, keep joining our webcast. Subscribe to this channel and you get nice notifications of when we do these. We'll do another one of these next month, right before the holiday break. It might be shortly coming because that break is coming up quick, but we will do one other webcast with at least some content. Whether it's live or pre-recorded, we'll figure it out. Yeah, feel free to send us emails. Thank you all very much for joining. I'll just do one last final pass on the chat window, and I'm just seeing smiley faces and thanks. So it means we are good to go. So thank you again so much for joining. Keep your questions, comments, feedback coming, and we're excited to share more of the cool things coming up in our next webcast.
Happy holidays.
Yes, thanks.